What's up, everyone? This is Prince Robert Onyejiaka with Prince Tech TV. Today, I have yet another special guest, Don Cahoon. He is the Enterprise PMO Manager for FP Mailing Solutions. FP Mailing Solutions is a company dedicated to providing high quality mailroom products and software which enable companies to more efficiently communicate. He's done several great things as it relates to leadership, managing human resources, and also managing business processes and aligning strategic vision with results. Stay tuned. Hello, Don. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, Robert. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for joining this series and having this discussion for us. The viewers will be very enticed and love this. Don is the head of PMO for FP Mailing Solutions. And uh, let's start off with you just kind of telling us about what that company does.
Yes. Well, thank you, Robert. Thank you for the invite and this opportunity. Um, FP Mailing Solutions is a manufacturer and a distributor of mail room equipment. And you may not fully understand what that is, but it's basically the ATM for postage and shipping that interfaces with individual postal authorities here in the U.S. For example, it's USPS. In Germany, it's Deutsche Post. In France, Franco Post, or Francais Post. In Canada, Canada Post, etc. And what this is a customer downloads value onto the machine, and as they need it, the machine provides them with an indicia when they process mail or packages through the systems, and it's the same as a stamp or same as postage. And it's also expanded to shipping, parcel shipping, much like UPS or FedEx. Um, and we also make other equipment such as folder inserters and sealers. And you probably will get mail from a doctor or a lawyer's office, for example, and in place of the stamp, there's a red marking, and that's what the indicia actually is. We're 14, 15 different countries, North America, Canada, and US, as well as over in Northern and Western Europe. Germany is where we were founded. Franco Type Postalia is the actual pronunciation of the company. In the United States, we call it FP, Mailing Solutions. And we're about 500 employees, roughly about $70 million in revenue.
Wow.
Spread about 15 different countries. And what my role is I manage certainly the PMO, but also the applications and networking IT experience for the company. What that includes is obviously data center, network center, but also the applications such as ERP, CRM, portals, the web experience, and it has some challenges because it's a global company, but it's also kind of a nice niche market.
Okay. And when you say that you manage like the CRM or in the ERP, is it like, are you doing like upgrades to a system, or is it?
There are upgrades to existing systems that occur, and to maybe implement some of the topics that we get involved with implementation are certainly user experience related, where maybe it's an efficiency, but we also work on improved revenue generation and setting up items for inventory management. We try to improve the processes inside the systems that also work with the ERP and CRM. And then we also have compliance because we work with postal authorities. There's a lot of compliance issues, like perhaps some coding that we have to make sure we are up to date with. I actually lead the development of it. I don't do the development myself. I have programmers that do that, and that's basically their effort to work, get the requirements My role is actually along the concept of working up the strategy,
Mm,
the work sequencing, the business relationship management, the financial management of the IT department, some of the human resource issues that are affected by by the IT department. So it's multiple hats. It's actually pretty exciting work. And then the PMO is more, what does the enterprise want to do?
right.
I know what maybe accounting wants to do, but I don't necessarily know what the priorities of the enterprise are, meaning all the departments, all the directors, all the managers. So the PMO functionality is getting that understanding and then working with the priorities of the enterprise. And by enterprise meaning the company, whether it's whether it's the local managers or the overall global footprint company, to make sure that we're on the right track, we're doing what the enterprise wants, the value creation that we're trying to go for. And then circling back or feedback loop with them to make sure we're staying on that track or we need to change the track. That's basically what a PMO does is we listen to ideation of ideas of systems and applications and solutions, but then we try to incorporate it into what the enterprise um, architecture, both from business process and also from an IT point of view needs.
Okay. So basically, the enterprise lets you know what they're trying to do, and then you craft a strategy that the PMO can then implement to ensure that it's meeting the enterprise's vision.
Correct.
That,
So,
okay.
yeah, an example would be, and to answer back to your earlier question, it's not just enhancements that we work with, it's actual system implementations, implementing maybe a new ERP or a new CRM or a new portal, for example, or a new website. So what we get is basically the enterprise says, yes, I want to implement maybe a marketing automation tool or
Mm,
application to my CRM so I can more effectively manage marketing campaigns and presentations and things. So it's my role then to make sure I've got a project manager I can assign to that to work to get into the finer details of the requirements and
right.
get a project plan together and get the milestones captured, what we need to do to achieve this. So it's not something that just gets brought up and then strings out forever. It's got to have a definition of beginning, middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And also stay within the KPIs, the metrics that we have for projects to make sure they stay on budget or stay within a certain time frame. So there's a lot of information exchanged back and forth between the enterprise and the project manager and myself to make sure that we stay on the right track. Oftentimes you'll hear some discussion about, oh, this is a great idea, and it goes from this is a great idea to everybody wants this. So
Right.
it's really a clarification around what that truly means.
Okay. So it's almost like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're constantly getting fed ideas, and maybe some may get implemented or developed, some may not. It just depends on, what you feel is going to fit the enterprise's
Yes. So
vision.
yes. So what I would do, yes, I vet all those ideas. I certainly catalog them for either current or future information. But it's also IT's role to vet out that request. Is it practical? Is it something that can be done? And is it something that's going to truly add value? And if not, come up with some recommendations for
Yeah.
what they might want to do. Maybe there's something homegrown into the CRM that actually saves the company maybe a $30,000 or $40,000 bill on a marketing automation tool that's actually built right into one of the systems that we already have. We just need to activate it. So
Right.
that's really the role of IT is to act, and my role specifically with the business relationship is to act like that consultant to really say,
Yeah.
okay, I understand what you're trying to do. Maybe this alternative works. Maybe this alternative doesn't. It's a lot of vetting that has to occur, but it gets the enterprise to think, of what they want to do long term, 3 to 5 years, maybe 10 years. And really, it's a great integration of a lot of processes and a lot of participants to get to an idea and get it delivered.
Got it. Got it. Well, I have a question as it relates to challenges. So, what are some of like the greater challenges that you have with fitting these projects into the enterprise's vision and being sure that things are kept on schedule and on track and that you're satisfying them?
There are no headaches.
Yeah. We like that.
Everything goes flawlessly. But um, some of the bigger challenges, are along resources. What is a resource? Well, it's certainly labor, the person that can do the job. It's also expenses. Can we achieve the expense initiatives to purchase something or to hire a programmer if we don't have them in-house? So there's a lot of understanding of what the resources are and matching that against the other challenges of not so much the implementation, but also the maintenance or the bug fixing. So it's your resources are tight, so you have to weigh where the challenges are with those, as well as the experience. I might not have a particular program available or a network person available that that I need to deploy this tool. So I may have to outsource or may have to hire. And so that's some of the challenges. The other challenges, as I mentioned earlier, are the KPIs to make sure we're on track or on budget, or we actually deliver what we say we're going to deliver. So it's a lot of metric management. Some of the tools I use to help me along with this, to give me some framework to work with, a methodology, if you will, is the project plan with the milestones I mentioned earlier, but also the roadmaps, which includes a strategy to maybe be a little more granular than a project plan and gets the participants, such as programmer, even myself or the network engineer, to really understand what's coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so that an opportunity is not missed because somebody went on vacation, for example.
Right.
We have such competing deadlines, or in the case of maybe an accounting or a finance application, you want to make sure you're not hitting them with a delivery of a solution right at the time they want to do month-end or year-end closing or quarter-end closing. So it's looking at those types of constraints to say, or looking for the constraints to say, I'm going to do this, but here's what I see coming up. And it also helps them outline all their other work. So I have those tools. And then I have communication plans, communication strategies to try to generate that feedback loop to the enterprise or the business unit manager or the owner of the project to make sure that we're staying in steady communication, effective communication. Challenges that come up are brought up and fully vetted for them to understand what the risks are, which is another topic of, what are some of the challenges? Sometimes the risks, you don't necessarily see 100% of them until you start getting involved. And then it's how do you mitigate that? So it's a constant review, if you will, of information and creating a picture or a scenario. Oftentimes I feel like a detective in that I get clues and now I've got to massage the picture for further investigation or
Right.
solution, or maybe a different alternative.
Mm-hmm. So you're like diving deeper. You'll get it, and then you basically do like a root cause analysis to find the source.
Yes,
Essentially.
yes,
All right.
yes. RCA, or root cause analysis, is a very, very predominant mechanism in, particularly in IT. Sometimes it's called a post-mortem. What failed, what was successful. But the root cause analysis is a very effective tool to understand where something may have strayed or what was successful. It's not all negative with root cause analysis. With postmortem, it's not all negative, and that's sometimes hard to get people to understand. Is is that it's not all negative. And that the other misconception is that every programmer can program exactly the same, or they work with the same languages. For example, my Navision CRM or my Navision ERP programmer knows a completely different language than my Dynamics CRM
Mm,
program, even though both devices are owned by Microsoft. They're not the same, and that's one of the other challenges in resource areas is really get um, the business to understand it's not apples for apples. Sometimes it's apples to cars, that kind of
mm,
thing. Same with the network. Not every network engineer can do exactly the same. Not every help desk analyst can do exactly the same. So those are some of the challenges, but it's like any business. It's basically a sub business of a business. Is what can I deliver that keeps you engaged?
right.
Is it
Okay.
easy? Yeah.
And you guys seem very timeline focused, and what I'm understanding is getting the right resources with the certain capabilities is probably one of the bigger things that affect your KPIs and
Yes.
negatively or positively.
Correct.
And so some of the ways that you approach that is you'll either outsource or hire someone else that can fulfill that role.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. So I monitor approximately 30 KPIs at any one point in time. Some are financial, some are project related, some are resource related. The biggest one is the competing deadlines and competing projects. Those will ruin KPIs probably faster than anything is when you have competing deadlines and we go from
Mm.
two or three priority one projects to they're all priority one, 1A,
Yeah,
1AA.
that sounds like a nightmare.
And so it's really understanding what you can achieve and what's possible and where the challenges really fall. How do you address those? So
Right.
I guess the way to look at that is disruption is fairly normal in IT. So it's really having a plan or a strategy around those types of disruptions. They can come from anywhere. It could be a cybersecurity event. It could be with COVID, maybe resources out sick for a couple of weeks, or came down with a cold, or the car broke down on the way in. It could be 100 things that affect
Right.
your KPIs. So it's really having a strategy around how to mitigate those with as less disruption as you possibly can.
Okay. Do you ever like cut scope or anything, or is it more so you just gotta get the resources in there?
It's that's an interesting question about scope because um, the the um, the ideation process never really looks at cutting a scope. Let's say we'll phase a project. We'll maybe go from 3 phases to 4 phases or even 5 phases, which also delivers that scope, but in a longer timeline. Or
Yeah.
in Agile, we talk about minimum viable product. So
Hmm.
maybe what we consider minimum is not as robust as maybe the business unit thought it could be or should be in that regard. So because what we find is if you cut scope dramatically, you've actually altered the project or topic or the project goal so much that sometimes it's not worth doing
Right.
on the run. So we do that, and there's a lot of resource opportunities, a lot of resource channels out there. We leverage Robert Half, for example, or we have Data Link, which is another support tool, support organization for us. And then I have some independent contractors that can help me with a flexible labor solution,
Hmm.
give me 10 hours a week. And so there's a lot of different avenues that I always keep in play, always keep a finger on to make sure that Yeah, when you need the resource, they're not always available when you exactly need them. So it's important to kind of look ahead, and that's where
Yep.
the roadmap helps a lot. I've been able to avoid some of the icebergs of resource management by having some look ahead tools, um, and understanding the changes that come up. Budget. You plan a budget every year, and it's amazing how many projects come up and be a year that weren't planned, and they are now priority ones. Let's say.
Hmm.
So it's important to really be adaptable to a lot of different types of strategies.
Okay. Very interesting. And my next question is, from
Yes.
an industry perspective, where do you see challenges there, or do you see anything that could potentially transform this industry in the next 5 years?
Yes, yes. Certainly with some of the topics that are very prevalent today, cybersecurity
Yes.
is upon us right now. Data privacy, data confidentiality is upon us right now, and they're only going to get more challenging or more complex. I think it seems like whatever solution you put in place for cybersecurity, there's a workaround that the hackers work with.
Always find a way, huh?
Right, you're right. So okay, I locked my front door. Now he's coming at the back door, or
Oh gosh, you locked that
basement.
Windows next.
It's really that simple. It's that's some of the challenges. But sort of an unknown, and some of the data privacy over in Europe, they have the GDPR. California, we have
Yep.
some different data privacy that are coming into play, and it's how to mitigate that. So it's with like a SOC 2 audit, and I apologize, I don't know necessarily what SOC stands for, but I know what it is. It's looking at process integrity. It's looking at management review of warnings that we would get and challenges that we have with just understanding some of the things we need to lock down or where our gaps are is some of our policies. The biggest challenge in all of that is there used to be a magazine article that always had a really interesting ad was the biggest challenge isn't on the dark net, it's so-and-so in a job role that clicks on something or hands out some information. It's a really basic, you could put all the tools in place that you could possibly buy, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the vigilance of the employees that
Oh,
are the most
yeah.
effective cybersecurity mechanism you have. The users. So you have to educate the users. So I think that's a big challenge is getting them, because a lot of people aren't really tech savvy.
Yeah.
So you have to, in certain environments. I know there's a lot of people that are. I mean, they have as much technology in their phone or their car that they can use flawlessly when they get to work. It's a bit of more of a challenge for some reason, and that's just the nature of people. As soon as you say this is an ERP for work, oh my God, I don't know what to do. But I know how to, send videos on Twitter, and I know how to,
Yeah.
copy things. Those people are very good with that. The other challenge that I see, but I don't see a lot of press on it, is around the same things that supply chain comes into, and some of the other, where is our talent going to come from?
Right.
Is it an unlimited well of people that we can draw from? Or are we going to run into the same challenges of trying to find resources at some point? As systems keep changing, people get, the low code example is really helpful to kind of get us away from, we have to have expensive programming capability down to it's kind of plug and play. Early in my career, I started down a path. I wanted to be a programmer, so I studied C++, probably one of the harder languages to learn at the time, if not today. And after working on restaurant menu, press a button and order, the dinner plate number 3, for example, in a menu-driven design. I was like, this is already in place. I'm learning something that's probably 15 years old at this point.
Mm.
Why am I wasting my time?
Yeah.
Because a package can be bought. So I think there's a lot of that. And getting over the misconceptions, cloud is a big word. It's oftentimes misunderstood that it's really just a server in somebody else's room or somebody else's office. It's not necessarily something in the Ethernet or the cloud, or
Right.
it's just a hardware device somewhere else that you don't know. So it's trying to educate people and trying to stay current with some of those challenges going forward with the resources.
Wow. Okay.
I hope I gave you some information that was
Gave me a
useful.
lot of information. That was very great. So one of
Thank
the
you.
key takeaways is, to lead a successful PMO, especially in your industry, it has a lot to do with the resources that, you put in place and having those skill sets and making sure that they're updated with the proper skill sets. And then you have
Yes.
cybersecurity, which is,
Cybersecurity.
that's a nightmare in itself everywhere, especially with COVID and everything that's going on. But these hackers are finding workarounds to still hack
Yes.
your system. So I see that as a great challenge as things go forward, because for everything that you build, there's always somebody that's put in the same effort and time to find a workaround. Anything that you build or implement cybersecurity wise. So, and I
Yes.
wonder how that can what the proper or best solution is for that, or is there one?
It's
Because I
I
mean,
don't know that there. It, so again, if you break it down to it's just a disruption.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, it's a severe disruption. It's a disruption just as though the building burned down or somebody walked into your data center and kicked out a plug on your number one server, for example. It's how do you mitigate with anticipation? You
mm,
anticipate these things are going to happen. So some of the tools in mitigation are, not to be cliche, and these are very overused terms, I think, because it's easy to say I have a disaster recovery plan or I have a business continuity plan. Do I really if nobody's ever reviewed it? Um, if nobody's kept current with it, if I've never done a tabletop exercise to say, okay, today we're going to work down a strategy or the journey of we got a cyber attack or the journey of somebody kicked out the power supply on the server or the journey of the diesel power generator had to activate but didn't work during a power outage in the neighborhood that my office is in. And so it's sort of looking at some of those bigger catastrophic occurrences and maybe having a strategy of okay, where's my backups located?
mm, okay,
Where are my extra resources going to come from should I need them? How do I communicate this globally to my customer base? Um, and you just made me think of something else as
okay.
something in the future is blockchain. I don't know
Oh
that it's
yeah.
100% understood right now, but I'm studying a lot about blockchain in regards to healthcare IT or HIT and also supply chain technology, because I think those are two really fertile areas or greenfield, if you like to use that word, of understanding some of the challenges to technology, some of the challenges to IT, some of the challenges to resources. With COVID, we certainly have seen the severe challenges to resources and the impact of that. The healthcare professionals, I don't know how they do it. Are we going to have Thanksgiving in our family next week? Not, I already know what's going to happen because I have other issues. But these poor people haven't had a day off since probably March, February.
Of
It's
course
like
not.
at some point that resource is so strained and so affected by all this. So if you take that, I think COVID, there's going to be a lot of lessons learned, a lot of management lessons learned. I think there's going to be volumes of books written about managing through crisis. And really, so getting back to that question about cybersecurity, et cetera, is really looking at the disruptions. They're going to happen. How do I navigate around them as effectively as I can without getting stuck?
Right.
So it's planning. It's really a mindset of planning.
Planning and thinking ahead.
So one of the other challenges, like for example, with some issues, is I like to have enough resources that I can segregate the minor topics, like my keyboard doesn't work, fairly minor topic, or my mouse doesn't work. Okay, I've got a help desk analyst to get to that. But if he's unavailable, sometimes it falls on the network engineer, or I'll even jump in there and help with some of the smaller things. But I like a faction of the team that are actually focused on higher value issues. Along those lines of the cybersecurity, along the lines of, wow, Microsoft just canceled this license. What do we do now? With an older system. I didn't mean to draw Microsoft as being a challenge. I meant like a provider just says, okay, we're going to discontinue supporting this system that you've come to rely on and spent years developing your customizations. Now what do you do? So I like part of my team to think about that. They have to focus on maintenance. They have to focus on lower value, but certainly I want them to spend a certain percentage of their time thinking about higher value issues that may occur. And that's takes it off of me thinking like that, takes it off the enterprise having to think about that. It actually gets it down to everybody knows something I don't, and I like to leverage that so that I can learn. Well, that's one of my goals.
Yeah. Definitely. Fundamental, know what you're good at, leverage people that have skill sets or know different things that you don't.
No, you're right. Everybody knows something,
Right.
You go to a grocery store, the guy you're going to ask is, what's the significance behind his freshness date? Is going to know more about the product than I ever will.
So don't try to
explain that freshness date. So you have to value what other people know.
Right.
Experience. So it's seeking that out and having a mindset around that. And I think that's been one of the more effective ways I've managed with people is just understand that I don't need to know everything. I can't know everything. I don't want to know everything. I have the right resource or the most valuable resource. And that way that's the biggest solution delivered to the enterprise is that the intrinsic value of the resources that we have is not necessarily obvious, but I always say you're going to know when these guys aren't there, or these people, because I have some women that work with me too, these men and women, when they're not there, you're going to know it. But the fact is you don't know it now, it speaks volumes to their skills. It's unknown that they're there. They're that good. It's seamless.
Wow. This is a very great discussion. I mean, I myself personally have learned a lot, and I can just imagine that everybody else is going to learn as well. So
I always learn something myself. That's why I'm very happy to participate in this. Because you gave me a few things to think about as well, like the challenges. I know what the challenges are today, thinking about the future resources one, and that's kind of a different take on some, because I tend to look at continual learner in this position helps to constantly look for things. And that's probably one of the most exhausting things about IT or computer programming, especially. You really have to not give up on learning the way things so much. And that can be exhausting to people to have to always learn and stay current. And what you know today may not be valuable tomorrow, because all of a sudden we go from on-premise to web the whole computer language just changed on some applications we have.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay.
Well, thank
So
you.
keep up to date.
Yes,
Everybody just continue to update your knowledge and learn, because in IT, like Donna said, things change and transform almost daily,
yes.
I think. So, yeah.
I think it's become, um, with boot camps, et cetera, it's become one of the easier things to learn, which is another indicator that it's kind of like, I don't want to equivocate this with truck driving, but it's kind of like truck driving. When I was younger, it was very difficult to get a CDL, very difficult to get trained as a truck driver.
Hmm.
Now schools, community colleges, they all offer it. Why? Because the resources are becoming limited. And I sort of see that with the programming boot camps.
Yep.
It's
Agreed.
easy. Why is it now becoming easy? If you look at supply and demand, it's like, okay, the supply of training is there. Is the demand for training there? And there certainly is, but you have to pick the right boot camp, the right thing you want to learn. There's a lot of faux programming boot camps, I'll call them, that want to train you on something you may never need. I tend to look a lot at Coursera.org for some of the free, and the free, yes, but if you want a certificate, there's some cost involved, but usually those are university level from around the world training that I really enjoy, and I could do it at home. It's some really great materials are provided, instructor-led, peer-reviewed projects. It's a very good way to jumpstart some knowledge in some areas like Python or SQL or healthcare IT, for example. There's some great modules that I've been able to follow. So those are just some of the tips I would give is always keep learning, but always have the desire to keep learning.
Yep. Always have the desire to keep learning.
Always have that desire to keep learning. Exactly. So always some more to learn.
Always more to learn. That's definitely right. Well, Don, I appreciate you again. I'm very appreciative that you came out and did this with me.